Hey guys, what's going on? It's Colin here again, back with another Gravely video. I know, it's been a hell of a long time since the last one of those. This is going to be probably quite a lengthy video, so feel free to skip ahead if you don't like story time and you just want to shoot the machine. I'll put in a time mark somewhere on the screen for you guys to skip to if you want to just see this machine and see it working. But for those of you who enjoy a little story time, this machine's got quite a story behind it, so buckle up. Some of you guys may remember from a long while back, probably some of my earliest videos on YouTube, I dragged home a 1958 Gravely Model L tractor from an estate sale that was right around the corner here. I saw the estate sale, and since it was close by, I decided to go. And I kind of had a feeling that I would find something engine-related there. Don't know why, but I was kind of expecting to find like a small Briggs engine in the basement or something. Again, I don't know why, because those things never happen, but I was walking around, and like buried behind a pile of bricks or whatever, it was sitting right in front of it, it was just kind of off in the corner, was a Gravely Model L tractor. I'll see if I can throw some pictures in here while I'm talking. But it instantly caught my attention because I had no clue what it was. But I went over and started taking a look at it, and I realized it had an engine on it, and it looked like an interesting piece. And at first I thought it was an old Briggs engine, not gonna lie. So I asked the guy, I said, "Oh, what's the deal with this thing over here? What is it?" And he said, "Oh, that old thing? That's an old Gravely. I used to use that for snow blowing. It hasn't run in years." He said, "I think the engine's even seized up." I said, "Well, how much do you want for it?" He said, "Man, if you just let me take those wheels off of it, I'll let you have it for free." So here I am thinking, oh great, I'll get this tractor and I'm just going to pull the engine off it and scrap the rest of it. And that night I went home and looked into Gravely tractors, and I realized what the heck they actually are. And I decided there's no way in hell I can pull that thing apart and scrap it. And I also realized my mistake of letting him take the wheels, because the wheels it had were gear reduction wheels, much like those. And those go for a pretty penny. But anyways, fast forward about 7 months. I hadn't heard from the guy at all, so I left a note in the mailbox and said, "Hey, I'm the kid that rode his bike over and was interested in that Gravely tractor. If you still have it, I'd like to know. Here's my number." Because every day my bus would go past there and I'd see the Gravely sitting in the driveway, so I knew it wasn't, gone, but I just wanted to express my interest in it. A couple weeks go by, and I'm waiting to hear. Every single time the phone rings, I'm getting super excited, and it's nobody. And then finally on my birthday, my parents come up to me and they say, "Oh, there's one last gift for you. Go check the messages on the phone." And sure enough, it was a nice man named Mr. Harmon calling me to let me know that the tractor was ready when I wanted it. And he had called like weeks earlier, but my parents wanted to surprise me on my birthday. So I was pretty ecstatic. I got help from some of my friends and lugged the thing home. Had no wheels, the hood was stolen off of it, the mag was missing, so he took a couple more pieces than we originally agreed upon, but that is not entirely his fault, because I did originally tell him I just wanted the engine off of it. And from there, that's when the original Gravely series picked up. That was several months of my summer, and I made videos about all of it. They're definitely not my finest videos, but they're probably decent enough that I could recommend going and watching them. But just realized that my videos have gotten much better since. But I ended up getting it running, and it didn't run too terribly, but there's a but. There was not a single piece on that machine that wasn't worn out in terms of like the engine and stuff. I mean, everything was worn out. That thing, you could fill it full with oil and let it run, and in 20 minutes it would be low. Probably even sooner than that. It smoked out this entire backyard, like thick with fog and stuff, and also like this entire like driveway area and stuff, like thick blue smoke. It was crazy how much oil it burned. So then I went, this is probably not the best thing. By then I had met my friend Brad, who's super into these Gravely's and stuff. You've seen some of his hit and miss engines online on my channel. I have videos on them, but he has a whole bunch of Gravely's too. Because I was looking for parts and stuff for that one, and I called him and asked him what to do, and he said, "Oh, it probably just needs rings, it's fine." And we did know it had a little bit of in and out slop this way, but we didn't think it was that big of a deal. So I finally pulled it apart, and I found a ridiculous amount of piston slop. and a lot of valve slop, and what was the final nail in the coffin was that the connecting rod had quite a bit of vertical slop in it too. So at that point, I realized I'd have to literally rebuild this entire engine to make it worthwhile. So I told this to Brad, and he's like, you know what, that's stupid. Just come here and I'll give you another tractor. Entered the 1961 Li. And the funny part is that I had actually gone to his house and robbed parts off this tractor to get my 58 going. But I ended up dragging this thing home, getting it running, which wasn't too hard to do. And what I ended up doing was I made something of a mutt of a tractor here, because this tractor's got both parts from the 61 and the 58 on it. So it's kind of a mutt, but I've kind of made one good tractor out of the two. So that's the story behind that. Shortly after that, I realized I started looking into the attachments that they had for these things, and boy, if you don't know, they made everything for this tractor. I have currently a snowblower on it. We'll get to that in a minute. But they made snowblowers, lawnmowers, reel mowers, brush hogs, circular saws, chainsaws, all sorts of crazy stuff. And it's interesting because most machines that are jacks of all trades are masters of none. These Graveleys, they're jacks of all trades and they are masters of many. They also made rototillers and stuff. From what I hear, a lot of their attachments were really good. And I can say with first-hand experience that I've used a couple of them and they are really good. So I started looking into what I could realistically use with this thing around here and what I could use with the parents' permission. And I eventually thought it would make a good snowblower. Because I just have a modern China Pride piece of crap snowblower. And it's been really annoying as of lately, meaning like 2 or 3 years ago. It started, belts started slipping, things started breaking. It was getting to be 8 years old and hadn't been serviced very well because I was too young to really know how to do that stuff at the time. And we would go get paid to get it all tuned up, and then the first snowstorm I use it, belts are slipping and things are breaking, and it's like, screw this. So I went back to my friend Brad, and together we started looking for a snowblower and some gear reduction wheels. And after a little while, we ended up just striking a deal where he gave me that snowblower and he sold me the gear reduction wheels at a very good price, I might add. And we went from there. So since then, I've gone ahead, I did a little work on the snowblower, and I got brand new ag tires for these gear reduction wheels, which weren't cheap or easy to find, I might add. I bought them off eBay and they were like $150 for the two of them. So yeah, that's kind of annoying. They're an odd size though, that's why. But it does look good. I love the look of these gear reduction wheels on these Graveleys. They look really cool. And they work really well. So, I will admit, well, I should backtrack a little bit. This Graveley is from 1961. That snowblower is a bit newer. These Graveleys would have originally had what's called a dog eater snowblower. It's a terrible name, but it is fitting, and it kind of makes me giggle a little bit. I'll see if I can throw a picture in here of one, but basically they were snowblowers, but the augers were all exposed in the front, and they spun at like 1,000,000 miles an hour, and they're the most dangerous looking thing ever, but they are pretty funny at the same time for that reason. But as soon as I said that name, which I shouldn't have, or showed it, I told my parents about it basically, and they were like, no, no way. So I was like, okay, great. They said we originally came up with a deal that if I did get one, I'd have to build sides for it. But rather than trying to find one of those, I just went with this, which is the MA210 Snow Cannon Snowblower, and it definitely lives up to that name. But for those of you who are Gravely guys, yes, I know that this blower is not necessarily correct for this tractor, but I like it anyways, even though it is the tractor is a tad underpowered for it, I'll admit that, but it still does a hell of a job. So, getting into the tractor on the mechanical side of things here, these tractors are really interesting. So Gravely they started off with a Model D, I believe, which was basically like a one-wheel tractor. Again, I'll see if I can throw some pictures in here. There's going to be a lot of those. And then I think in the mid-30s, they came out with this L design. And they kept the same basic design all the way into the mid-60s, possibly even early 70s, I believe. And all they really changed was the engine. They kind of increased horsepower in a couple different ways, and they changed the air filters, and they also changed the oil system because it's pressurized oil, and they changed the hoods, and I believe that's it. So it's pretty much this, like a lot of parts are interchangeable, which is pretty cool. They are, like I said, they're really interesting machines because Gravely made everything, including the engine. So we'll start with the engine here. This is a 6.6 horsepower T-head Gravely engine, and it's air cooled, so you can see there's a big old fan under there that spins around at 1,000,000 miles an hour. It's got a Zenith carb. The other interesting thing with these machines is that you could see there's no governor. These machines, the governor was an option, so that should show you how well these are built, because they knew that people wouldn't blow them up. But if you're wondering where the name T-head comes from, look at, this is the jug here, and you can see kind of it's in the shape of a T, because what there is there's a valve on either side of the piston, and then the piston's in the middle. So if you look at the jug, it's a T shape, and it's interesting because the T-head engines really were some of the early, a lot of early automobiles used T-head engines, and then they kind of faded away. And then Gravely kind of brought it back, which is kind of interesting. But I like that a lot. It's a super torquey, engine. It's a bit of a torque monster. Oil bath air cleaner, which is in the center here, and it's got like a tube that goes around to the carburetor. It's magneto fired. So if you look over here, T-heads are also twin cam engines. So there's one cam on each side, each with one lobe. Just noticed there's a bolt sitting down here. Oh, there's another one in there. Wow. Okay. These Gravely's, they like to shake themselves to pieces. They do vibrate quite a lot, and also I tend to drop bolts when I'm working on them, and they get stuck in some very interesting places, kind of like that. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a bolt in there, and I was looking for that the other day. Anyways, this is one of the two camshafts here, and it comes out and it drives the magneto. And when I originally got my 58, it did not have the magneto, so I bought this off eBay, but what I failed to realize was that there was a coupler that goes in between these. And rather than waiting even longer for the to see if that Gravely would run, I said, you know what, I'm going to make my own coupler. So this is a piece of PVC pipe I cut and made my own coupler. And I got it on like the third try. And it's actually been holding up perfectly ever since. That thing still works great. I'm pretty, I find it pretty funny that I was able to make that out of a piece of 1-inch PVC pipe, but hey, it works. So I'm not going to change that until it breaks, and then if it does, I have an actual coupler. But these are also pressurized oil. They've got a pressurized oil system on them. So there's an oil pump back behind here, and there's lines everywhere, and there's a spin-off filter here, which is kind of interesting. A lot of engines from this period were splash lubricated. But not the Gravely's. The other interesting, there's a lot of interesting things, so you might hear me say this a lot, but on these engines, I could be wrong about this, or I could be just saying it the wrong way, but I forget what the actual terminology is, but the crankshaft in this thing is basically two big discs with a pin in between, and as a result, it's balanced, which is nice, but it's also like the crankshaft almost acts as the flywheel in a way, because you can see this is the starter cup. There's not really a lot of weight here. So it's kind of interesting. These things will chug pretty slow. It's got, I think, 2 sets of planetaries in it and a big worm gear to drive the wheels here. And then inside these gear reduction wheels, which I believe cut the speed in half, there's a big ring gear in there. These tractors also came in 3 different speeds. You could get the L, which was the fastest, the LI, which was the intermediate or the middle, and the LS, which was the slowest. But these are your shift levers for high and low gear, and then forward and reverse. This is the throttle. And down here, that's where the PTO is. There's a dog gear in there that slides back and forth with this lever. Some of them just had a little lever down here you could flip. Seeing as though this is the snowblower, and if things go wrong I'd want to be able to turn it off quickly, I have the remote PTO that came with my 58 on here. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I added a kill switch here for safety reasons, because otherwise you're going to have to come down here, open the hood, and ground out this little tab in here. And if something's going wrong, I want to be able to turn it off quickly. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the tractor side of things. On the snowblower side of things, you can see this thing is one hell of a tank. Just look at how thick this steel is. It's crazy. Yeah, all solid metal. Big bronze worm gear in here. And it definitely lives up to the name Snow Cannon. You can see down in there's the impeller. Adjustable chute manually. And then to turn this back and forth, this is probably the coolest part of this whole snowblower for me, because I just like things like this. I have a rod here, which I crank, which goes to a sprocket here, which goes to a chain, which goes to another sprocket down there. And there's a cable here that goes all the way around, hooks on here, and it's tethered on both sides. So just watch this thing go back and forth. And you can't tell me that this isn't the coolest thing ever. Here we go. Is that not the coolest thing to watch? I don't know how you could tell me that's not cool to look at. I just think that is like one of the coolest looking mechanisms ever. But I'm weird like that. Also, these handlebars are off the 58. Somebody had rigged up this oil pressure gauge. It's an original low pressure oil gauge for that year tractor, but somebody kind of just welded this up here, which is kind of interesting. I did want to connect this, but I don't really want to rerun lines, and also this is the wrong gauge for this tractor, because I believe this is a low pressure gauge, or low volume I think it is, but this tractor has the high volume system. So I think I'm just going to leave it there because it's kind of cool. It does work. I remember seeing it work with the 58, but yeah. This is a 6.6 horsepower engine, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that. It's quite a torque monster, and it does all right with this blower, but the recent storm we had, which you guys will see some footage of, was really dense, heavy snow, as you can see here. Like really packed in stuff. So I definitely had to take it slow, and I couldn't take full passes, really. I could, but it would take a while, so I took like half or quarter passes with it. And it did alright, but it's a tad underpowered because these blowers were really meant for the commercial 10 and 12s, which I believe are 10 and 12 horsepower. I think that's where that name comes from. If not, correct me down below, because I'm not familiar with the newer Graveleys. I like the old stuff more. But I'm really tempted, honestly, seeing as though this is a mutt tractor. They had a 7.6 horse version of this engine, and as far as I'm aware, again, correct me if I'm wrong down below, because again, I'm not super familiar with the newer stuff. I believe all they changed was they went from this slanted spark plug to a vertical plug. And if that's the case, I am slightly tempted to get a 7.6 horsepower head, and I'll get another horse out of this engine that way. Seeing as though it's already a mutt, I wouldn't mind doing that. It would be nice to get an extra horse or two out of it, but I don't know, it does pretty well considering. You just got to take it slow. But anyways, I think I'll go ahead and fire it up for you guys now. I'll show you it running, and then after this I have a little footage of clearing some snow. So let's go ahead and fire this thing up. Also, I would like to just point out, last year we did have a little bit of snow. It wasn't much, it was some nice light and fluffy stuff though. This tractor threw snow from the bottom of this driveway, or at least the snowblower did, from the bottom of this driveway past that telephone pole down there, which I don't know if you can see it, but that's quite a distance. I was reaching at least their driveway, but I'm pretty sure I got a few snowflakes past that telephone pole down there. Just to give you an idea of distance, I'm at the bottom of the driveway here. That's the telephone pole all the way down there. So definitely lives up to the name Snow Cannon. Even with this heavy snow, when I was up here by where the Dodge was, I'll walk up here, I was throwing some snow up here, and I was making it to the street. So it's pretty impressive what this thing will do, especially when you consider the fact that, again, this tractor's a little underpowered for this blower. You get this blower going on a real commercial 12, and it's ridiculous. The snow is just like whoosh. It's just like a solid like stream that's going like 100 feet in the air. It's ridiculous, but yeah, it's a pretty impressive machine. The other thing I'd like to point out is that this tractor, I'm pretty sure the tractor alone weighs 350 pounds. I remember reading that somewhere. Now, if I had to guess, these gear reduction wheels probably weigh another 50 to 100 total, and this blower is probably well over 100. So, you add that all up, this whole machine's over 500 pounds. You just don't get that anymore with modern snowblowers. Some people go, oh my gosh, that's ridiculous. This thing's got to be such a bear to move. Oh my gosh. And yes, it's a bit of a workout, but it is fun. And a fun workout's a good combination. But also, this snowblower can do things that modern snowblowers don't do. Modern snowblowers, you hit my neighbors get plowed. So down here, at the bottom of the driveway down there ends up with a plow mound where this plow just compacts all the snow in. And you try and get rid of that with a modern snowblower, and it just wants to ride up right on top of it and just, go right over it. I was able to relocate the entire plow mound to my front yard with this thing. I had this blower buried. That plow mound was probably about this high, probably 4 feet high. And I had this blower completely buried. And I just, in low gear, just kind of would inch it forward a little bit. The thing would go and just, chug away. But I had the entire blower buried, and I was able to tunnel all the way underneath the plow mound. And then what I did was the top was still there, so I took it and I jumped up on these handlebars and knocked the top, and it all fell down. I was able to chug right through it and throw it out. And you just can't do that with modern snowblower. They don't have the weight or the torque to do it. They might have the horsepower, but they just don't have the weight to plow into it like that, and the torque to just keep going. So it's pretty crazy what this little thing can do. So anyways, enough babbling. Let's fire this thing up. Alright, so I put some fuel in it. I got the fuel valve open, I believe. I'm going to go ahead and start this thing up. Now, there's a saying I saw somewhere on one of the Gravely forums, and it's very true. If these Model L tractors don't fire up within 3 pulls, there's something wrong. This thing fires up on the first pull almost every single time. Now, I've said that it won't, but they generally fire up real easily. The other thing I do want to mention is that this thing is by no means running perfectly. It kind of spits and sputters at an idle right now. I think I have some carburetor issues I need to take care of. I think there's an air leak somewhere, but I just haven't gotten around to it, and seeing as though it runs fine at high RPMs, I just haven't put the effort into doing it. So anyways, let's go ahead and start this thing up. They are quite loud, so I'm going to wear some ear protection. It's actually starting to snow right now, so who knows, we might actually get to use this thing. Go ahead and give it a little choke, a little throttle. Make sure my spark is on. Here we go. Like to point out that any smoke you see coming out of this thing, that's the muffler. That muffler I had on an antique engine that just dumped oil in it all the time, that I'm now deciding to put in this thing. So if it looks like it's burning oil, that's oil burning out of the muffler. That's not the Gravely. But it's chugging along pretty decently, but it does misfire a decent amount. So I'm going to go ahead and take you guys out to the truck farm and take a look. So here you go, here's the shot of the fans for you fan guys. You can see that thing just whirring around through there. Let me go ahead and give it a little throttle here. These things will chug real slow. You can go ahead and cut this oil fill with the breather off here. full throttle right there, so it might not seem like it. Come on, don't die on me. They can be a tad cold-blooded. These engines being T-head engines and so torquey, they don't rev up all that high. I don't know what redline would be, but that was full throttle there. You can tell it's definitely screaming, but it's you know, compared to a modern screamer 3600 RPM engine, I don't think that these rev up quite as high. But, oh, and then for you guys who are wondering, this is a homemade exhaust manifold. I had issues with this arm rubbing up on the original cast iron exhaust manifold, and it broke it, and I lost a piece because it broke while it was snowblowing. So I said, screw it, rather than trying to make one up and raise it or to get it going on, I took an old pipe flange and I cut it. And in the exhaust manifold, I stuck this exhaust pipe on, and I moved this arm around in a way that it won't interfere with that again. Yeah, chug real slow. Oh, I do have that idle set a tad slow, but as you can see, it's definitely a mean machine. I'm going to go ahead and fire this up one more time, and I'll just take it for a quick drive around the driveway here, and then we'll throw in some snow throwing footage. So let's go ahead and do that. Go for a little drive. So, if being able to pull up this driveway in high gear with the snowblower on at a dead idle doesn't scream torque monster, I really don't know what does. Let's go show some snowblowing now. So anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this video. So thank you all for watching. If you like what you see, hit the little like and subscribe buttons. Those of you who would like the Gravely stuff, definitely stay tuned, because I'm going to be working on another one at some point soon for my buddy Brad. I think it's an earlier one from the early 50s, I think. So that's going to be pretty cool. Not entirely sure when I'm getting my hands on that, but definitely this year. So stay tuned for that. And by all means, leave a comment if you have one. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.